what Dorian looks like right now out in the Atlantic Ocean. It has strengthened since we've all spoken with you yesterday. So yesterday it was a tropical storm. It's now increased to a hurricane and looks in a little bit better shape. So we are expecting Dorian to go ahead and continue more of a northwest track and then turn more towards the west as we have a high that's kind of blocking it to the north from going more north. So that's going to turn and steer it more towards Florida. So what's changed since yesterday is that in addition to becoming a hurricane, it's also expected to be a major hurricane at landfall, and the timing has slowed. We see this in each advisory that the timing of the storm has slowed. There's still a lot of uncertainty in the forecast with this, so if the track of the storm were to go more of an eastern or northern solution on the cone, then we wouldn't really see impacts necessarily to our area. But if it were to go down more in the middle, we could see impacts, and then if we went more on the western side or the southern side, that would also be more impacts for our area. And that's, if it were to get in the Gulf, we could see storm surge, again, if Dorian were to get into the Gulf. But if it were to go up the spine of Florida, then storm surge is not a concern for us. The main concern right now is really that heavy rain for the Florida Panhandle and Big Bend area that could result in river and flash flooding. In terms of the impact, I said again, the storm has slowed, so our timing has slowed. So if we were to see impacts, they could begin as early as Sunday night. But this is the earliest reasonable arrival time, and it really keeps appearing to be on the earlier side and keeps slowing down the forecast. And we'll talk about more of the timing as we get further into this webinar. So these are the tropical storm wind speed probabilities, so the chance of seeing tropical storm force winds at any particular location. And we have seen these continue to increase, so the probabilities for tropical storm conditions have continued to increase. For points in the Florida Big Bend area, and even into portions of southwest Georgia, they do have a 3 in 10 chance of tropical storm force winds over the next 5 days. And then for points in the Panhandle, the remainder of southwest Georgia and southeast Alabama, there's a 1 in 10 to 2 in 10 chance of tropical storm force winds for those locations. And again, we have seen these numbers increasing. In terms of the timing, this is a little complicated. Again, we've seen the forecast timing trending slower. So the earliest reasonable arrival time for tropical storm force winds for our area is Sunday night into Monday morning. And while we normally don't focus too much on the most likely, since it has been trending slower, we're also showing you in this next slide the most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds. So that would be Monday. So most likely those tropical storm force winds would arrive Monday. This could even still be on the earlier side because again, we've seen the forecast trending slower and slower and slower. So it ultimately depends on the track and a couple other variables, but the most likely timing of those tropical storm force winds would be Monday. In terms of the rainfall totals, this graphic is from the overnight forecast of the rainfall totals. We don't have the updated graphic from today yet, so for those of you that are particularly concerned about rainfall totals, feel free to check back with us later this afternoon. And so we're seeing 3 to 7 inches of rain across the Florida Panhandle and Big Bend, locally higher amounts, and you'll notice that's actually a little bit higher than what's in the graphic because this graphic is going to change. And where we see these higher values over the Gulf of Mexico, that bullseye there, that's going to push more towards the east coast of Florida. And so we are going to see this graphic change, but 3 to 7 inches of rain forecast across the Florida Panhandle and Big Bend, 2 to 3 inches of rain forecast across southwest Georgia and southeast Alabama. Based on these amounts and some of the more vulnerable areas with rains that we've had recently, that could lead to river and flash flooding, because particularly we talked about the Steinhatchee River yesterday, and that being one of the more vulnerable areas. Again, these values are going to change though because it's still early in the forecast, so please don't be too set on the values that you're seeing here on the map. So just to recap everything, our big changes from yesterday is that we are expecting a major hurricane at landfall, and the latest forecast, they actually have a Cat 4 going into the eastern coast of Florida. In addition, the timing has continued to slow. There's still a lot of uncertainty with the forecast. Again, more of an eastern northern solution, we wouldn't necessarily see a lot of impacts for our area, but that western southern solution would be more impacts for our area in terms of rain, if it got into the Gulf, the storm surge, even watching the wind. Our main concern, though, overall is that heavy rain that could lead to river and flash flooding. Again, timing-wise, Sunday night would be the earliest reasonable time, but Monday is the most likely time period that we could see tropical storm force winds impact your area. So that still could be on the earlier side given the slower solution. And then finally, we just wanted to emphasize that we want to make sure we're not focusing on any single model run and either sharing that on social media or any other way, because that sometimes can confuse the messaging. And so we want to make sure we're really focusing on one message. And so if we can be careful about not sharing any single model run, we would really appreciate that in terms of messaging. Our next briefing is going to be 2:30 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, so there will not be a 9:30 a.m. briefing tomorrow. There will only be a 2:30 p.m. briefing tomorrow. And at this point, we'll take any questions. And if you have a question, because everyone is on mute, go ahead and hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Anybody have any questions?
Call recording is off.